Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, I hope it was a Merry Christmas for everyone concerned. Now we've got Boxing Day and opening day at Santa Anita with a full slate of stakes races, including the Malibu, which marks the return of Mystik Dan, the Kentucky Derby winner. So it should be a fun day of racing at the Great Race Place. We're going to go through all the stakes races, and at the end, we'll have some ideas for sequences as well as value plays for you to take a look at. So let's have at it. The first race we're going to take a look at is the Lafitte Ping Kai Jr. It's a grade two, the sixth race on the card, running a mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds and up. And really nice to see Lafitte get the recognition he deserves. One of the greatest jockeys of all time, and certainly one of the top two with Willie Shoemaker, and maybe top three. You throw in Russell Days too. But Lafitte was just an awesome jockey, and it's nice to see him get be recognized for it with his own stakes race. You look at this field, and early on, looking at the front runners here, I think Tarantino is a big time stakes standout here. If you consider in his last two races going two turns where he had been primarily a sprinter in the past, he really seems to have put it together, putting back to back really solid efforts. The last one, I thought he was awful game in the stretch and looked like he was fading, but he somehow was able to re-rally for second, and wasn't going to win. Skinner had him, but it was a really good effort. He took him all the way around, and I don't think he's going to get a lot of challenge from JB Strikes Back or Ashcroft in particular, mainly because I don't think they can put together the kind of fractions that Tarantino can. So he should be able to be on the lead without a lot of bother, and that makes him pretty dangerous in this spot, I think. And I think Tarantino is definitely one to consider here. Express Train is just a hard knocker. He's been around quite some time. He's had a long layoff, but I think he's one that you certainly have to consider. Maybe a little something off the fastball at 7 years old, but in this field, I think he looms a good threat. He should be sitting off the pace, and provided he fires fresh, which is always the best time to get an older horse, I think he's definitely a factor in here, certainly one to consider. Goldeneye to me is kind of interesting. He is of the same owner and same trainer, Peter Yurton, has Tarantino as well, and it's kind of interesting that maybe they can have a little gamesmanship in here, have a unique scenario. I don't know. Goldeneye has been running at longer races, and that gives me a little bit of pause because generally, horses who run at longer races, longer distances with the fractions tend to be softer. May be a little difficult for him to raise his game, particularly late. If you look at next in the Breeders' Cup Classic, kind of ran into that same problem, just being able to gallop essentially for most of the race before putting it all together. So that kind of bothers me with Goldeneye. Still, I think he's very interesting in this spot. At 12-1, I think he certainly is one that has an outside chance here. I think he'd have to raise his game just a skosh, but I think he's probably more of a bet for under, and he offers some pretty good value at 12-1. Lamas has done the majority of his racing in Northern California, and we'll put a flag at half staff for California racing, I guess, for a while. I don't know what's going on there. California's just such a mess. But this one's just a consistent performer. He brings it seemingly every time, and for that reason, I think you have to keep him in the mix here. I don't know that necessarily he has the top end to get this one done. But I think he's one that you certainly want to consider. And again, at 6-1, pretty good value for your exotics. Catone is my pick to win this race. And, I didn't like him in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Didn't like him in the Pacific Classic. But the fact is, he's running consistently against much better than here, I think. And he is in good form. And I think he's going to have a pretty good scenario with which to run to. And there's a lot of things that set up pretty well for him. And I don't consider this race to be, I consider it to be a pretty wide open affair, but I think between Tarantino and Katona, I think you've got, the irresistible force against the immovable object. I'm going to give the edge to Katona just for the finishing ability. Tarantino maybe can't quite hang on, but it is going to be a pretty good scenario for a front runner like Tarantino. So of the contenders in this race, I think those two look to be the top two choices, and I'm going to give the edge to Katona for closing, and he is running fresh. S Gabriel is agreed to. It's a 7th race on the Saturday card, running a 1 1/8 on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. And we all know who the one to beat here is, certainly Johannes, who ran huge in the Breeders' Cup Mile. A lot better than I thought he would, and even besting the likes of Notable Speech, which I thought was a pretty big Herculean effort. This horse is, he's better than the rest of these, without a doubt. And he's perfect at Santa Anita. There's not really, it's kind of hard to knock him, except for the fact that the Breeders' Cup was his last race, and there is logical that there might be a letdown. But this horse really never does let down. And I think that this is the type of scenario. I don't think they would put him in here unless they thought he'd be a pretty good shot, that he could win it. I don't think he necessarily needs his best race to win this. And I think it's you've got a lot of performers in here who are pretty vulnerable. They're either on the way down, being older, or just their form isn't very good. So I think this is a pretty good spot for Johannes, and he would be the pick to win it. I think he's going to be very hard to beat. Just taking a look at the field, Cabo Spirit certainly surprised in the John Henry, but I don't think he's. That was a rather depleted field and not the quality of this one. So I don't look for him to take him all the way. He was a pace factor in the Breeders' Cup, and we knew that's all he would be. Certainly this is not the Breeders' Cup, but I just don't see him taking him all the way. Probably going to be joined by Dicey Mocara, who hasn't won in quite some time. And you're likely going to get some pressure from 911 Turbo, I think might be up there. 911 Turbo, to me, is pretty interesting. Normally, I wouldn't like a horse at 7 years old coming off their career high off the bench. It's logical that the following up there would be a letdown. But, he ran a really good race. And some of these, again, are suspect. And for that reason, trying to find some value, trying to find somebody underneath to Johannes, I think 911 Turbo makes a lot of sense at 10-1. Particularly when you consider, the likes of Astronomer. I mean, he had every chance to win the Seabiscuit and just proved that he's just not as good as some of these others. But 911 Turbo, Neil Drysdale hasn't won this year, but I think he's in good enough form, and Neil Drysdale doesn't put him in unless they're ready to go. So I'll just throw him in there as a horse for value, not a win candidate. We spoke about Johannes. Escape Artist, I took a really long, hard look at. This is a horse for the course and the distance. But the problem I have is his races without Lasix just don't match up to his ones with Lasix. And that was really the determining factor. I'd love him at 20-1 if he was on Lasix. But I think that, he's just proven he's not as good without it. So I'm going to let him go. Mi Hermano Ramon, to me, if somebody is going to beat Johannes, it's Mi Hermano Ramon. This is a 4-year-old on the upside. His last 2 races have been very solid, now coming in 3rd off the layoff after winning the Seabiscuit. Tactically, I think he's got the right type of style for this race. I mean, he should be sitting just off the first wave and just bide his time. And if he's good enough, I think he can win. He's definitely moving in the right direction, and you really can't say that for a lot of horses in this race. So to me, you want to look for horses upside, and I think Mi Hermano Ramon is definitely one to consider as an alternative. And I may even try to beat him. I think it's just because the scenario sets up well, and again, he's the only horse really who has upside. SEAL Team is 6 years old, and he just, I love Dick Mandela, but this one just doesn't seem to be good enough. His last race, he had every chance and couldn't get it done. And I don't see any indications that he is going to run big enough to win this race. So runs the same way as Johannes and Mia Mano Ramon, which is also a downer. So I'll let him go as well, particularly at 8-1. I think his price needs to be higher than that. Easter in the Seabiscuit kind of ran into the same problem as redistricting. They were just too far back, and they just weren't able to mount enough of a charge late. This horse is really a problem because he seems to be his own worst enemy because he breaks slow all the time. And given the fact that tactically Mia Mano Ramon and Johannes are going to be more forwardly placed, I think that really puts him at a big disadvantage. He would need to run his absolute career best here, and I just don't see it happening. Just tactically, I think that everything works against him here. So, in short, Johannes the one to beat without a doubt, but keep an eye on Mia Mano Ramon. I think he's really dangerous here as a potential upset. The featured race on Saturday on the opening day card at Santa Anita is the Malibu. It's a Grade 1, 8th race on the card, run at 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds. And this is always a great race, and this is a really, I'd say, a very well-balanced field and a very interesting one. Ben Tornado, I've loved this horse all year, and he damn near pulled off the Breeders' Cup Sprint at 28-1. This is an interesting horse. I think the distance really makes a lot of sense and it is very favorable for his running style. If you watch his races, one thing about Ben Tornado is it seems to take him a little bit to finally get into gear. So to me, the more distance he has, the better it is. He's obviously not a two-turn horse, but at 7 furlongs, I think it's down in distance, just perfect for him. I think he's had plenty of time to rebound from the Breeders' Cup. He did run big, there's no doubt about it, and he is. It is possible he could have a letdown, but the tab doesn't show it. And I think this one has been firing all year. He's never been less than third in any race. I fully expect that he'll run another good one here, and I think he's got a real shot in this one. Raging Torrent, I think, basically had a letdown after beating the Chosen Vron in the Pat O'Brien at Del Mar. I mean, he ran huge in that race. The Chosen Vron is, no slouch, as we know. So I think he got into the Breeders' Cup, and I just think there was a little bit of a letdown there. And now that he's had a freshening and he's had, the tab looks fine, I think he's going to bounce right back at a distance he clearly loves. 3 out of 4 at 7 furlongs. He should be awfully dangerous in here, and he's my pick to win it because he's run the fastest Brisnet figure of any of the horses in here, and I think that at his ideal distance he should be awful tough. So Raging Torrent is my pick, and at 92, love the price. Bob Baffert's got 3 in here, and honestly, Pilot Commander, Winterfell, and Imagination, and really the only one that scares me to death is Imagination, and here's why. We know he bombed out in the Preakness. That's true, and it was a kind of a questionable ride, keeping him that wide all the way around. But this is a horse who definitely has some talent. He cost $1 million. But the thing about him is when you watch races, those 5 seconds, always you see a running line like that, and it does kind of, a race line rather, it does obviously pose the big question. When you watch Imagination run, I sometimes think he just doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing in there. And that bothers me. But you look at his tab, he is clearly ready to run. I mean, he's got the classic Bob Baffert pre-stakes tab, including the 6 furlong workout beforehand. If he does put it together, he is awful dangerous here at 12-1. I think he's probably more likely for under, if anything. But if you're looking for a horse to go against the chalk, I think he makes a fair amount of sense. He's just really hard to trust. Pilot Commander and Winterfell, I think this is way too big a challenge for Pilot Commander. He hasn't shown enough to me to say that he's ready to beat the likes of Raging Torrent, Ben Tornado, or even Mystik Dan. Winterfell, the last race I watched, he came from the clouds to win, but that was at Laurel. He's certainly become a better horse since leaving Bob Baffert's care and going east, but now he's back with Baffert, and he looks like he's ready to run, but I just kind of question hit the class level here, so I'm not willing to take a chance on him, not even at 15 to 1. So now we come to Mystik Dan. And in all honesty, and you guys know, you've watched my postings, I've never been the biggest fan of this horse. I just haven't been. But I always thought he was more of a one-turn horse than a two-turn horse. And now we get our wish. He's back in distance he's never run before. But at 7 furlongs, he's well rested, while the others are coming, the primary players are all coming from the Breeders' Cup. So he's certainly going to have an edge there. Kenny McPeek has a nice record of bringing horses over to the West Coast. So that's not a problem, and I don't think Kenny McPeek would bring him here unless he was ready to roll. I think 7 furlongs is just right for him. If he has matured or grown any since the Triple Crown, he's going to be awful tough to beat in here. And it's, really the only question I have is coming off the bench for quite so long a layoff where the others are going to be a little saltier. But I think he fits here. And again, the turn back to me is exactly what the doctor ordered to get this horse going again. So Mystik Dan, certainly a player in here. Now, Stronghold, I can go either way with, and I've chosen not to use him. And really the only reason is this horse has the same problem, has had the same problem throughout the year, whether it be the Kentucky Derby or any race he runs in. He just doesn't finish because he's just not fast enough. He's a fighter. He brings it every time. But when he gets in these situations, these grade 1 level races with this kind of class, he falls short because he just isn't fast enough, hasn't had enough time since the Breeders' Cup to grow where he would get faster, I don't think. And I just think he's just not good enough. Can he get underneath? Sure, without a doubt. But it's finishing really that keeps me not interested in this horse. But if you want to put him underneath in the exotics, I get it. Senior officer to me for Brad Cox, this is awfully ambitious given his first 2 races. The last one he didn't win. He seems to be stalled at the same speed figure, same fractions. I don't see growth there. Yes, Flavian Pratt, of course, always is an indication that that good things are expected. But at 5 to 1, with a horse with 2 starts, where it really didn't go against a whole lot and wasn't that impressive, to me, I'll let him beat me. And that's the bottom line. So we're going to go with Raging Torrent. I think he's at his ideal distance. I think he's certainly capable of bouncing back, and I think he will. But Mystik Dan and Ben Tornado are certainly going to provide stern challenges in what's going to be a really nice Malibu. The Mysore Mile is agreed to. It's the 9th race on opening day card on Boxing Day at Santa Anita. It is running a mile on the turf for 3-year-olds, and this distance means a lot to a couple of performers in here, most notably King of Gosford. His last race at 1 1/8, I think he didn't look as comfortable as I saw him in the Let It Ride 2 back on Breeders' Cup weekend. He clearly is better at 1 mile, I think, than at longer, and so cutting back to this distance certainly should benefit him. Thing is, though, there really isn't a lot of pace in this race, and I'm putting Curlin's Chaos up at the top as just a guesstimate that perhaps they're going to send him with Armando Ayuso. I don't know, but he looks like maybe that excuse me, that perhaps that would be his best chance to have any impact in this race. But if that doesn't happen, then it kind of becomes a quagmire up front, and King of Gosford may end up inheriting the lead. Not to say that he couldn't win this race from the front end, but I think he's more attuned to being a little further back and rating. So, to me, that may sap some energy from him getting a fair amount of pressure without a clear-cut horse to run to. So, he certainly can win this race, but given the race shape, I mean, 6-5 seems a little short, and you've also got Stay Hot in this race, and Stay Hot, Formidable Man, and King of Gosford are the top three in California, and really none of these other ones have beat any of them. So I would consider this a race between those two, King of Gosford and Stay Hot. Tactically, I think Stay Hot probably has a better chance, probably a better setup for the reasons stated. Came up the rail in the last race and showed really good kick like he always does. It's down in distance. Again, another horse who loves the track, loves the distance. I would say it's all systems go. Really, the only question is how much pace is there to run to. But it almost doesn't matter, just because he's far and away better than any other runner except King of Gosford. So I give him a little bit of a tactical edge. Couple others that I thought were interesting, in particular, CNY. I really like this horse in this race. Now, this is third off the layoff, which for Phil D'Amato is an excellent angle. But more than anything else, the first race was the Let It Ride in his sequence. And he looked like a horse who needed a race. He got to the top of the stretch. I think they pushed a button, and he really didn't have it. But he did keep on fairly well. The next race in the optional claimer granted a little bit of class relief, but he showed some really good explosion in the stretch, and I always look for that, particularly in closers. It was very noticeable that this horse is coming into his own. So coming in third off the layoff, he's very eligible to move forward here. And at 6-1, I think you're getting some outstanding value. If it's not the top two, I think CNY makes a lot of sense here. Then number 9, Lord Bullingdon. Number 1, 15-1. You're getting some nice value. This is another horse that appears to be better suited moving back to a mile. He seems to have done some better work earlier in his career at the mile distance, and stretching out, he just didn't look as good. So for that reason, I think that I think that he can factor in this race. I think he needs to get a lot faster in order to win it. But if you're looking for horses to fatten up the exactas or the trifecta or even the super at 15-1, I think he offers some really good value. Honestly, the other horses, Hard-Headed, Adilan, Cathal, they just didn't do it for me. I mean, I can't see any upside with them, and they can't beat the top two. They just haven't been able to. So to me, they were logical tosses. So in some, Stay Hot, a little bit of a tactical edge, I think, but I really like CNY for a value play in the Mathis Mile. The female counterpart to the Malibu is the Laa Stakes. It's a grade 1. It's the 10th race. Run at 7 furlongs for 3-year-old fillies. And I'll tell you, this is a great race. What a field. A lot of high-powered speed. Bob Baffert's got 4 in here. Dick Mandela's got 2. This is a monster. And really what it's going to be is the question of who is ready to move forward and who's in the best form, I think. Looking at them, the Bafferts obviously bear a lot of consideration. Splendora looked pretty cool to me until I noted that her last 2 are with Laa Stakes, and her debut without it wasn't quite as spectacular. She seemed to be making monster improvement, leaps and bounds at 6.5 furlongs, but when you see that Laa Stakes there, a little hard to trust, especially being so lightly raced. While Splendora is nice price at 12-1, I think is maybe going to be up against it with all this early speed. Kinza made a lot of noise early until she crashed in the Santa Anita Oaks. Okay, so she's not a 2-turn horse. No big deal. She's working very well. I liked her tab a lot. I would have liked to have seen a bullet, but nonetheless, I think that she's one who's demonstrated her class, and I expect will be able to hang in there. Whether she can take them all the way, I'm not so sure, but she will be firing fresh. And we know Bob Baffert, when he's got a long layoff, had time to fill out, time to grow, she could be really something. So Kinza at 8-1, I think, is definitely one that you want to use. Now, Hope Road is on a tear, has won 4 in a row. The Bayakoa last time was a small but a pretty good field with Alpha Bella and Delta Dawn. Had to work for it, but she had been off since August, so I'm willing to forgive that a little bit. She probably just needed a race, and yet comes off the bench and wins a grade 3 against Older. You'd have to like that. Certainly one to keep in mind. The question will be whether or not she can stay off any type of pace scenario that develops. I think she probably can rate, and I think it would be necessary in the spot. Cavalieri it's too much too soon for me. She is cutting back to 7 furlongs, but I just thought that I didn't see that progression that I really like to, especially with a Bob Baffert. And I'm going to wait one, but probably will be a pace factor, and that's pretty important in this field. Another one to mention is accuracy. I just don't like horses who have it that easy. I've mentioned that before. Some of you have seen my post know that I don't like horses coming into a graded stakes, especially when they've had it all their own way. And don't know that she beat a whole lot last time. Ultimate Authority's a pretty decent horse, but I think she's probably going to get swallowed up here with all this early speed, and I just don't think she's a fit. One Magic Filly, to me, is really interesting, and that's who I'm going to take on top for a couple of reasons. Number one, she's proven that she can rate, and I think that's very important, especially at 7 furlongs. Moreover, in the Breeders' Cup, I thought she was unlucky. Had some traffic. I think she was traveling very well in the stretch. Of course, nobody was going to beat Soul of an Angel, just came flying out of nowhere. But I thought she ran a very useful race, and I like the fact that she stayed in training. I think I gave her that 3 furlong work to sort of see how she came out of the Breeders' Cup, and once they determined she was okay, they kept working her, and her tab looks fine. And I think she's got a little bit of a class edge over some of these who are more lightly raced and really haven't been against older or against classier horses. So One Magic Filly, to me, at 4-1, offers a lot of really nice value, and I think she can win this race. Sugarfish, I think, is probably more for underneath, but I do love the route to sprint angle. And you go back in her form, and her race at 7 furlongs was her best. She won by 10 lengths, so it's in a distance that agrees with her. She's not going to be anywhere near anybody up front, and I think she'll have enough late. That note from the Breeders' Cup about being empty in the distaff, I didn't think she was. She did save ground along the rail, but looked to me she was traveling just fine. She just wasn't as good as Torpedo Anna or a couple of the others, Raging Sea, and that's fine. They're not running here today. So I think Sugarfish could impact this, and certainly more likely to spice up the exotics, but I think is one you certainly want to consider. Tamara, I almost put on top here, and I'll tell you why. Not just because she's at 8-1 in a big field at 7 furlongs, but she obviously has hinted at some ability. Last year, she was all the rage prior to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and then crash, But it also turns out she's been hurt, and there's been a couple other issues. But this is a horse, I think, definitely that has quality. And ran, 7 furlongs is a distance where she made her mark and got people excited. So it's clear that it's a distance she likes. Her last race against Sandy Bottom, I thought she was a little slow out of the gate. Looked to me like a horse that needed a race, and she steadily, kind of rushed up a little bit, but made steady progress. And had the race been just a little bit longer, she would have won it.
So to me, it's logical, especially since this is her second start after quite some time, that she's going to be firing fresh, and I think her tab looks solid. And if she could rate, that rate sufficiently, meaning that not just overcoming a slow break, but if she could just stay off the leaders, maybe a couple of lengths, then she'll probably be in a really good position. And Tamara is a horse that I think maybe is sneaky good here, especially at 8-1. So this is a really great betting race without a doubt. It's chock full of really nice horses, and this is, to me, probably the most exciting of all the stakes races on opening day. But we're going to go with one Magic Filly to take the La Brea. The last race on the opening day card at Santa Anita is the American Oaks. It's a Grade 1, the 11th race, run at 1.25 miles on the hillside turf for 3-year-old fillies. So they've got that little crossover there, but sometimes it's more late. I like to see it than I do early on. But in any event, take a look at this grouping, and you see that Shadalas is the lone speed. Being by gun runner, certainly 1.25 miles is going to be right up this one's alley, but it's hard for me to believe that this one can take them all the way. I don't see a whole lot of early pressure, and Shadalas could get bold, but it looks to me like they're just sort of trying to figure out what to do with this horse because the dirt races haven't worked out terribly well, and I just can't see it. Now, She Feels Pretty is certainly the overwhelming favorite, and after her Queen Elizabeth II, no surprise. She hasn't run since then for Cherie DeVoe, but this is certainly a horse with quality. But let's go back and remember that we had some questions about how far this one wanted to go. Those mile races, was so often looked poised to win in the stretch for 2 or 3 of them, and then didn't get it done. Put it all together in the QE2, and certainly that was a very impressive effort. But it's still a lingering question. Being by Caraconte, that's not necessarily 1.25 miles type of pedigree. So it does give me pause a little bit. I find it hard to like her at 7-5, although talent-wise, she certainly has an edge, and maybe that's all it'll require to win this race. I could certainly see it happening, but it just got a little feeling that it maybe is a little too far for her. So, looking at this field, trying to find horses who want 1.25 miles, and that's really what we settled on. I did. And looking at Medoro, I think is one that the last race, getting a second to Watchtower didn't bother me very much. I think Medoro just needed a race. This has been a consistently good horse, never out of the money. I think is a very logical use here, and has the pedigree to indicate that 1.25 miles would probably be just fine. It just I wonder about taking the move forward, taking another step. That was really what it came down to for me. Has that big number, a couple back, and then and it's a little suspicious that she ran a big race like that and then hasn't followed it up. And so I was getting a little bit of hesitation on Medoro. I settled on Kathy and Marissa because, number one, she has run at these type of distances a couple of times. Once at Kentucky Downs with a win, and then at Saratoga in the Oaks. Wasn't going to beat Cinderella's Dream, but still, if you go back and watch that race, was very authoritative in the stretch. But for Cinderella's Dream, she would have won that race easily. This is a horse, I think the pedigree says that she definitely is going to want 2 turns, want 1.25 miles, and I think this is right in her wheelhouse. So Kathy and Marissa at 4-1, I think, is offering some really nice value. If She Feels Pretty gets hammered, we may get even better than that. To round out the grouping, strutting to me is the quandary I have. I was really looking forward to betting strutting on top, especially at 15-1. that last race at a mile, to me, looked like a horse who definitely wants more ground, and I thought closed very well for the North American debut, and with more ground would certainly follow. That this one could run more effectively. There were a couple things that bothered me. Number one, I love Mike McCarthy as a trainer, but he puts Ricardo Gonzalez aboard this one. And no knock on him, but there were a lot of other more prominent jockeys, and I found it strange that he had two horses in the race, and yet Ricardo Gonzalez is one of the mounts for a horse that looks like this. Everything should meet right between the eyes. And that was really the defining thing. You go back and look, she hasn't won this year. That's obviously a problem, but she has faced some really good company, including she got a fourth behind Friendly Soul a few back, and Friendly Soul came back on Arc de Triomphe Day to win the Prix de la Forêt. So she has faced some good company, and I think Strutting is kind of a sleeper in here, and if you're looking for a long shot play, she makes a lot of sense. Missy Ann, I threw in here mainly because the pedigree, being by Justify, she should love top and bottom. I think on turf, she should love this distance. She needs to get faster, for sure, and but it looks to me, the fact that Umberto Rispoli stayed aboard when he had other options, I think is enticing for me to think about this one underneath. If she takes a significant step forward, being a 3-year-old, it is entirely possible. This one could be very dangerous too at 20-1, but right now I see her more as an underneath type of play. But we're going to try to beat She Feels Pretty with Kathy and Marissa, and I think this is a pretty intriguing race to see if She Feels Pretty can get a mile and a quarter, and if she can, boy, next year looks awful exciting for her. So when we have 6 stakes races in a row, usually they include an all stakes pick 6. So I thought it would, for those of you who like to play these, we'd throw that in there. And certainly you can extrapolate the pick 5 out of that for races 7 through 11. I think my ticket would be probably the same thing, although I might have a single in race 7, I believe, or possibly in race 9. But in any event, leg 1, race 6, we're going to go with 6 and 7. I think it's Katona or it's Tarantino, one or the other. Leg 2, race 7, I really like Mi Hermano Ramon. I just really like that horse, and I really think he has a chance for the upset, given the fact that Johannes is coming out of the Breeders' Cup, so we're not going to exclude him. So we'll go 4-7 in that leg. Leg 3, race 8, the Malibu. I think we need to spread. It's a pretty hotly contested race, and there's a lot of really good candidates. Ben Tornado, Mystik Dan, and of course Raging Torrent. But I'm going to throw Imagination in there as a wild card because if he comes through in this one and I didn't include it, I'd kick myself. So at 12-1, hopefully we're going to get that better value, and if he does come through, then we're really going to get paid. Leg 4, race 9. We're going to use 1, 4, and 5. If you want to trim down the ticket, I would probably throw out the 1 because I think that the scenario really doesn't set up terribly well. But he is good enough, and it is the Mathis Mile. I mean, it's a good distance for King of Gosford, so I think you can include him. But I really like CNY as a value play, but Stay Hot, I think, is the primary pick to win. And then in leg 5, race 10, the La Brea, we're going to go with the 7, and we're also going to include 9 and 10. I think Tamara has a really good chance there, and hopefully we'll get something around that 8-1 price. And then finally in the American Oaks, leg 6, the 11th race, we're going to go 4-8. I want to try to beat She Feels Pretty in this spot. I think Kathy and Marissa is the one to do it, but we certainly don't want to exclude She Feels Pretty. She's just too good. I just wonder about the distance. So that's 2 times 2 times 4 times 3 times 3 times 2. That's a $576 ticket on a $2 base. And obviously the pick 5 is set, like I said, races 7 through 11, and pretty much be the same ticket, so you can extrapolate it from there. Looked at the pick 3s, and There's an all-turf pick 3 at Santa Anita, as many of you know. Races 7, 9, and 11 this time. So let's go with that one. I'm going to single Mi Hermano Ramon for a pick 3. I don't like to go into a pick 3 sequence unless I definitely have some value. And obviously, Johannes is going to be really chalky. And given the fact that you've got She Feels Pretty in the 11th race who could potentially win, well, that's not a very enticing pick 3 with 2 really short prices. So I'm going to go with Mi Hermano Ramon at a price, and if it hits, great. If not, I'm out $4. Then we're going to, in leg 9, I really like CNY, number 4, but we'll throw Stay Hot in there as well. And then in leg 3, race 11, Kathy and Marissa in the American Oaks, but She Feels Pretty is a saver. So if we get our 2 value plays in the first 2 legs and She Feels Pretty comes through, then we still will get paid pretty well. And again, it's only $4. Then another pick 3 I looked at, races 7 through 9. Again, we'll single Mi Hermano Ramon. The Malibu will spread 1, 5, 6, and 8. And hopefully we can get Imagination home to really max out. And then in leg 9, we're going to include CNY and Stay Hot. So that's an $8 pick 3 on a $1 base. So that's a couple of sequences I think that look pretty good to me, and I'll wish you luck with that. So now I just wanted to give my best bets and my value plays. Now the best bets to me, again, I know I picked Johannes to win the 7th race. I get it, okay? But I really think Mi Hermano Ramon's got a really big shot here at a price. And to me, it's a really good play of the day, particularly when you get an overwhelming favorite coming off the Breeders' Cup. It's a good time to beat him. And I think Mi Hermano Ramon's got some really nice upside. So I'm going to go with him. And then in the Malibu, I like Raging Torrent. I mean, it's down in distance. It's 7 furlongs. Or in the I just think it's everything sets up well for him in that race. It is going to be hotly contested, but to me, it's just one of those things that just really sets up well for him. So I think I'm very confident that he's going to take that one down. For value plays, as you know, I always love to include a lot of them whenever I break down a stakes race. Mi Hermano Ramon, again, a great value. I think, and has a really big shot. Imagination at 12-1 on the morning line. I think we're going to get better than that, even though he is trained by Bob Baffert. He's mercurial, we know this, but if he can put it all together in what is a really hotly contested race, you're going to get paid. CNY, I like a lot in the 9th race. I just think he's a sleeper. Tamara at 8-1. If we get anything near that in the La Brea, you got to bet that with both hands. I mean, I think she's got a really big chance in what is a really hotly contested race. But she's I think coming in second off the layoff. I think she's ready to run back to her old form, and we know she loves 7 furlongs. And then in race 11, the American Oaks, I think Kathy Marissa is 4-1 on the morning line, but you got to believe She Feels Pretty is going to get bet down. So I think that might drift up and we get a little bit better value. So just some ideas on some value plays and where I think the money is going to go for the best bets of the day that I really like. It's always nice when your best bet is also a value play. So if it comes in, I'm really excited I'm going to get paid. So that's a little more involved than we normally do, but it is an all stakes select section here, and we got 6 of them, so I wanted to cover all of them, and hopefully this analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. Wish you the best of luck as always. Happy Boxing Day to everybody. If you do like content like this, of course, please like and subscribe, and we do thank you for your support, all of you who have stuck with us, and I'm looking forward to the new year. I hope you are as well. I'll wish you a happy new year. Probably won't talk to you until after it. And hey, we're right on the doorstep of the Derby Trail, so it's time to get really excited about racing. So that's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.